you will watch on this podcast.
It feels like your arms are reaching out and grabbing the food and putting it into your mouth as quick as it can.
The only thing is that people have to know it's a device, it's a tech, and only a tech.
If you try to make them understand how our body works exactly, they're going to lose themselves and they're not going to do anything, and they're going to go back to binge eating and eating whatever they want.
In many cases, that's going to make a person feel even worse for these behaviors if they see their glucose and their insulin fluctuating massively.
Welcome back to this Wellness Billion podcast, my friends. It's so nice to see you. So nice to read your comments and feedback about all the episodes that we had all together. Today is a special day because we are receiving a special guest from the UK, which is Jo Moscalu, and that we will present, obviously, and Karim Amor, my dad, the co-host as well. As you may know, we're gonna tackle 3 different articles. So this podcast has 3 different parts, as usual, but today with a nice guest. Jo?
Yeah, and by the way, we love the UK, and every time we go there, we have such a tremendous time. Last year, we were in the UK with the whole family in a conference, by the way, and it was a wellness conference. So we were there with me and my 2 daughters and Yassine, assisting to the conference. We had a tremendous time, and each time we go to the UK, we just appreciate the whole perspective that the UK has, the atmosphere, everything about it is something that we grab whenever we go there because we love it. So, Jo, let me ask you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your work, what you do, how you became what you are today, a binge eating expert, so that we get to have a little flavor about yourself.
Well, as I said, thank you for inviting me on. It's a real pleasure to be bringing this message to the people of Morocco and I'm sure worldwide, because podcasts reach all over the world. So I am a registered dietitian. I have been for, I think, 10 years now. And when I first began as a dietitian, you really get submerged into that world of wellness, of nutrition, of helping people to improve their lives. But one area that I felt was not as well explored is the area of eating disorders, and in particular, eating disorders where overeating is involved, such as binge eating disorder. And I looked at myself and my friends and my colleagues and my family, and everyone is trying to find the best diet for them to eat in a way that feels really good to them. But there's this notion of falling off the bandwagon or not being able to do it for very long, or starting diets and then falling off them and not being able to keep it up. And I just said to myself, there's something missing here. We have so much information about nutrition, about diet, about how we can implement it in our lives. But when it comes to it, a lot of people find that they can't sustain for very long. And another subset of people find that they end up falling off the diet and falling into a place of binge eating, really, which, I'm sure I'll go on to describe a bit later. So I then decided, this is where I want to focus my career. I did a postgrad in eating disorders, a master's degree, and I'm now working towards my doctorate where I explore the lived experience of binge eating in Ireland. Although I'm based in the UK now, I am Irish. I lived there until 25. So I'm very passionate about what it is like for people in Ireland to experience this behavior.
Yeah,
I have a podcast. I was going to say I have my podcast, the Binge Eating podcast, where I share a lot of my message on there.
Outstanding. My daughter, which is happens to be Yassine's sister, I hope, is studying eating disorders at UCL London right now.
Oh, great!
She was very, very focused. She did a very high level French business school in Paris. And then she decided she wanted to go into nutrition. And then when we were talking to them, because you can imagine that each of our meal is a little conference. Mm-hmm. And she said to me, Daddy, I want to go study eating disorders. Mm-hmm. I said, what? She said, yes, we've been talking about eating disorders and eating the different diets and so on and so forth. So now I want to study that because I think I have the vibrations to be able to do it. I said, okay, let's go for it.
That's incredible. And that's one of the only postgrads for eating disorders you can do in the UK. Amazing. And her expertise is really needed. So that's great news. How is she getting on with it?
Oh, she loves it. She has a lot of work, and she's coming over today from London. She says to me, Daddy, I don't even, because she did 2 years in the US, and the third year as a master's, she decided to do it at UCL London, but she's overwhelmed by work. She said, Daddy, I'm learning so much. I'm doing my best to cope with the rhythms that this university has on eating disorders.
Sure, yeah. UCL is no joke. It's very fast paced, I'm sure.
And
You'll have to have her on the podcast.
That'd be a good idea.
it's because it's the whole world, to be honest. Like food, it's 80% of people's life. Whenever we're trying to plan our day or plan our week, it's always around food. It's okay, when are we going to have breakfast, lunch, dinner? And so that's why the food industry is so important to tackle and so important to understand. Actually, myself as a wellness content creator, I see it and I see the feedback of people, and it kills me to see that people don't know anything about food, and that's crazy. That's the purpose of all those.
So let's get on track with the first article. Jo, the floor is yours.
Sure. Okay. So the first article which was I was asked to review is called "The Impact of Binge Eating on Metabolic Leptin Dynamics in Normal Young Women," and it was published in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism in the year 1999. The study is described as investigating the effects of binge eating, specifically consuming an entire day's worth of calories in one meal, the effect on glucose, insulin, and leptin metabolism in healthy young women without eating disorders. 7 lean women participated in 2 trials, one with regular meals and another where they consumed the same caloric intake in one evening meal. Blood samples were collected for glucose, insulin, and leptin analysis over several hours, and menstrual function was monitored.
So what do you think exactly about this study?
I think we have come a long way since this study was designed. The first thing that jumps out at me is that, firstly, a study on 7 people is very, very small. I don't think can take much statistically from a study of being this small. And secondly, what they're describing here doesn't sound like an episode of binge eating to me, because with binge eating, it's not just eating one's day's calorie at one time of the day. It's actually eating an amount that feels way more than most people would eat in a situation, and eating it very quickly, feeling very out of control, and having a feeling of regret or shame. What this sounds like more like is the recent wellness trend, which I'm sure you and your audience have come across, of 1 meal a day. Have you heard about this?
Yeah.
Or OMAD as it's described?
Yeah.
The OMA diet.
That does it.
Yeah, well, it comes from intermittent fasting at the end.
Absolutely, yes. This was designed in 1999, so maybe that's what the thinking was then, that this is what binge eating was. Binge eating disorder actually was only described in 2013 in the DSM-5, although there was some description of binge eating as a behavior before that. But I think this really just points out, this article, about how far that we've come, that binge eating now is far more better understood and simply is not just eating a day's worth of food in one meal, which is more like OMAD.
Yeah. So what is your understanding today? How would you explain it to the coaches that are looking at the podcast and the people that are looking at the podcast in terms of what exactly what is the effects of eating one time a day, a big meal? I heard from you that it's a pattern of eating a lot, plus in a speed, and plus having at the end some resentment on how you about your behavior.
Yeah, exactly. So that is fundamentally what an episode of binge eating is. There are some more criteria too, but really it's that sense of, I shouldn't have done this. Whereas when you have your 1 meal a day, you don't think, I shouldn't have done this. Tomorrow I'll try to be better. This is something that you're choosing to do. Whereas an episode of binge eating is certainly not an active choice. Most people will say that they feel very dissociated when it happens. It can feel like an out of body experience. It feels like your arms are reaching out and grabbing the food and putting it into your mouth as quick as it can before your brain even catches up with this.
It's crazy because I had the exact same feeling yesterday. Yesterday night, me as a wellness content creator, I'm aware of all of this. And like you just said, you said something really important that I've never heard, is that your body or your hand reaches that food before your head gets to process it. And this is so true. I had a bowl of chips in front of me, which wasn't mine actually. And I was like, I'm not hungry, but let's just grab some chips, and you just start and eat and eat and eat. And then at night, I'm thinking about like, oh, tomorrow I shouldn't do that. And
Shouldn't do that. I should work out more. I should cut back. I should
yeah,
replace those chips that I ate from my friend. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, and I sometimes have another type of reaction. We say, okay, I didn't eat for the whole day. Now I can eat whatever I want. I don't eat fast. I try to eat slower and slower because I know that can hurt. But what I say to myself is say, okay, now that I didn't eat the whole day, I can eat not whatever I want, but if I eat clean food, as I call it, which is a lot of vegetables and proteins and I mean, clean food. I can make myself enjoy the food so I can eat a little more. And you were talking about eating much more. How much more, Joe?
That is really open for interpretation. There's no set calorie limit of what a binge is. You have to eat 2,000 calories for it to be a binge. No, sadly, we can't define it like that. It's more than most similar situation, which again is open to interpretation. So you ate those chips last night, but was it more than most people would eat in a similar situation? It sounds like maybe not. It sounds like it was still a civilized amount of chips to eat. But if it's maybe a full sharing bag plus another full sharing bag plus a bit more, you're smiling, maybe that's how much it was.
No, I have self-control. I have self-control.
And that's why we have all the other indicators for a binge too, because you can't just single out one behavior and say it's a binge because it was more than most people eat in one situation. It has to be, you have to have the feelings of guilt, of regret, eating quickly as well. Although actually eating quickly is open to interpretation too. So yeah, it's the whole picture when it comes together.
Mm-hmm. It's I mean at the end, like if we come back to what the article says, what I understood from the article is that binge eating is like eating several times during the day when you don't have to eat. And there's some people that just do a full amount, like the OMAD that is called to, which I did for several years. It's open to interpretation, like you said, because there's some people that prefers to eat several times a day, but have calorie control. So they know what they eat several times, and it's better for them. And there's some people that don't like that. They like to have a big meal once a day, and that's enough for them. And in that big meal, for example, for a normal human being doing some exercise, they eat 2,200 calories, and they're good with it. And that's it. They eat it in one meal, they're good with it, and they're not hungry or feel the need to eat during the day. Personally, I like to eat every 2 or 3 hours, but that's my...
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to eat.
It's a pleasure to be able to say, okay, in 2 hours, I'm going to have my good meal. I know that I control what I eat, but for some other people, it's completely different. From others, they need to, twice a day. It's always tailor-made to every single individual, I believe.
Completely. And if you're happy eating one meal a day and it aligns with your lifestyle and it feels really good to you, then by all means, please continue with that.
Yeah. Then when we get to the metabolic state, given that metabolic functions are affected even when caloric intake is controlled, we can ask ourselves what alternative approaches we can consider to help individuals balance energy intake without negatively impacting the metabolic health.
Sure. And that's an example of what I help my clients with, is recognizing that binge eating is not good for one's health, metabolically, physically, mentally, emotionally, and coming up with strategies to reduce those binges, because yes, we are here to help people to reduce binge eating. Agreed.
Yeah, what we look for on the work we do in the research lab that we have here is be able to measure how does the body altered response to insulin and leptin in like kind of, let's take the example of binge eating. Compared to effects of intermittent fasting, for instance, eating 2 times a day, like I mostly do every day, which also involves into a prolonged period without eating, and also on the other side, you have people that are fasting for much more than 1 day, let's say 2 days, 3 days, 4 days. Then, what I've never done in more than 4 days, but I remember what I did in 4 days. The practitioner that was following up what I was doing with a group of people was saying to us, okay, guys, now that you're going to restart eating, you have to restart very, very tiny quantities of food. And how does that relate to compared to binge eating?
I think with binge eating, you have to be very careful, because we have this mental element with it, the guilt, the shame, the remorse, the feeling like I shouldn't do that. And if we try to intervene in a way that's going to exacerbate that, it's not going to help the client, right? It's not going to help the person. So I am a big fan of like looking at when the binges are happening and what circumstances are they happening and how can we learn from those. Like a certain situation would be that someone will binge on their way home from work in the car because it's the only time that they have to themselves. They're transitioning between work and home life. It's like, okay, let's look at that and see how we can, find that time for yourself in another way, a more helpful way. So not so much looking at things like lab markers. In many cases, that's going to make a person feel even worse for these behaviors if they see their glucose and their insulin fluctuating massively. Maybe further down the line in recovery, but initially, let's try to reduce the binges and then we can focus more on the micro level. Does that make sense?
Yeah, on that, we have a big discussion with Yassine all the time about the calorie balance myth and the position of the discussion to say, okay, most of the people that, like Yassine, believe that calories in versus calories out is the sole factor in metabolic health, focusing instead of how meal timing on hormone regulation like leptin and insulin play a crucial role. So we're having a kind of fight, Yassine and I, and say, okay, this is not calorie in, calorie out. It depends on the effect of the timing you eat and how you eat on your leptin, on your hormones, on your insulins, whatever.
You don't have to expose it like this because it's not the same calories out. It's maybe Joe's going to understand what I'm going to say, but I'm generalizing the information and making it easy to understand to people. That if you eat more calories than what you consume, you're going to gain weight. If you eat less calories than what you consume, you're going to lose weight. And this is just the general picture because I know that people, they're never going to go deep into it. If you try to make them understand how our body works exactly, they're going to lose themselves and they're not going to do anything and they're going to go back to binge eating and eating whatever they want.
But they feel even worse about themselves, feel like just overwhelmed with information. So I have no doubt that metabolic markers are impacted by binge eating. I've no doubt about that. But because I work with clients, I'm an active practitioner and not a researcher, I tend not to prioritize that because I don't see how it's helpful to the bigger picture.
Yeah, the research we made, by the way, is a research to measure in a continuous monitoring way, so that we can know exactly how the glycemia is evolving, how the heartbeat is evolving, how the hypertension and the cardiovascular part of the body is evolving. And this is very, very useful because what we notice is that what we can measure, we can kind of nudge. Yeah. And this is a self-realization of the people of the effects of what they does to their body.
Yeah, totally agree. And this is, and I strongly believe that this is the perfect transition to the second article, which is related to eating, but this is more of a marketing practice that so many people are doing on social media to make themselves interesting and to make money out of it, which is Mukbang. The article says that, is Mukbang dangerous? Viewing the health risks of Mukbang. And for people that don't know, Mukbang is a viral eating trend that originated in South Korea, where hosts eat large amount of food in front of a camera while interacting with an audience. And I've been seeing this all the time going viral, and there's a trick behind this. I don't understand. Personally, I hate seeing those videos because for me it disgusts me, because when I see this, I know that they're harming their body. I know that they're just destroying their body. And I don't know if you saw the trend that, do you know Nico Cado Avocado?
I saw, and I'm invested in it.
Really?
Well, yeah, go on, you continue.
Okay, that's great.
You're gonna be in trouble.
I've actually talked about this guy on one of my previous podcasts with another podcast that I have, and going back to mukbang eating is, for me, it's horrible and it has to stop on social media because it creates an enormous eating disorder into people. When you see large amount of food and large challenges, and it comes back from long time ago. For example, in the US, when they used to do challenges of eating a huge pizza, and if you eat that huge pizza, you get the pizza for free. Great, you get.
That's how many pizza you eat, by the way. How many pizzas do you?
Exactly. And now you do it now. There's a huge trend with tacos and all of that stuff. Like it's a huge thing. What people don't see is the harm that they're doing inside of their body after eating all of that unhealthy food. Now going to this trend of Nico Cado Avocado, that the big reveal that he did. I don't know if you saw it. Did you ever see this guy?
So this is what I'm invested in, is that he recently made a video where it seems like he had lost quite a significant amount of weight, and did he pre-record, I think, 2 years worth of content about doing these mukbangs, but it's still not certain, right? It's like, well, did he actually lose weight? Did he not? It's not very clear. That's my understanding of it, but maybe I've missed something.
Yeah, you never know. I'm very, very concerned about those before and after thing, because it always happened in a time frame where you show people what you can do. Okay, you practice it, you do it, you reach an outcome. But at the end, are you keeping on shape for the rest of your life? Is it giving you some insights so that you know what goes well with you, what doesn't go well with you? This is another story. And usually when you see them, I don't say every time, but what I say is usually when you see them 5-6 years after, you see them gaining weight again and be as they were.
Would you like me to share my insight into mukbang?
I would love it.
Sure. So from a specialist in binge eating point of view, I can see why these videos would provide some kind of connection or comfort or some kind of human interaction, even though, of course, it's not real interaction because it's you watching a video. But binge eating is incredibly isolating. So when you are at home and it's happening and you're by yourself and you feel all that shame and guilt and regret afterwards, it can feel comforting to see somebody else engaging in a similar enough behavior. Mukbangs are not binges as such, but it's a similar behavior, someone eating a lot of food. And I can see why someone who is struggling with their own relationship with food would find comfort in watching others. But I do think that at the very least, a disclaimer that this is not recommended behavior, that it's not good for one's body to eat this amount of food on a regular basis. Sure, if you do it every now and then, that's not going to have much of an impact, but doing it regularly is not going to be helpful for you mentally, physically, anything like that. So yeah, we certainly can't normalize that eating the amount that people eat during mukbangs is appropriate.
Yeah, I think that would be kind of interesting to host a kind of reverse mukbang episodes, inviting people like inviting mukbang creators who focus on balance and meaningful eating and showcase their approach to food consumptions and create an open dialogue about how mukbang could move away from binge eating to mindful eating practices, and to encourage those users who connect with food to eat more healthily.
Yeah, or even just bring back simple things like family meal times, have your family eating together, or eat with your partner, eat with your friends, call up a friend as you're having your meal and eat with them virtually if that's the only option that you have, but bring back that connection in another way.
Yeah, I totally agree. But what for you, what would be the factor that people like watching those videos? Like I always ask myself, like how...
Well, she answered the part of the question saying that people like to see people like them because they're very lonely in their corner, and they love looking at people doing the same thing, and maybe they feel less guilty, although they feel very guilty. Isn't that?
Yeah, like I think it is definitely a comfort thing, that it's comforting to watch somebody else eat. And I think what's drawing people in is, generally speaking, people are fascinated by what other people eat and how much they eat and what foods they like. Believe me, as a dietitian, whenever I go to a dinner party and say like, oh, I'm a dietitian, it's like, oh, what do you eat? What? Yeah. Or I'm starting to eat like my, steak and chips, and they're like, do you eat steak and chips as a dietitian? Like, people generally are fascinated with the eating habits of others. And I guess mukbangs give that insight, don't they? You could say something similar about what I eat in a day videos, which are also very popular online, which I believe for the most part usually offer quite a disordered approach to food. That's another conversation. But again, it's just that fascination with what other people eat.
I actually do those, what I eat in a day.
Oh, no.
I do, but wait, I do those what I eat in a day very realistically, because I'm integrating exactly what I eat in a day. And I strongly believe and I preach the fact that you can eat whatever you want as long as you make it in a healthy way. For example, I love eating pizza, I love eating burgers, I love eating pasta. But how do I make those ingredients or how do I make those dishes healthier than what you can get at the restaurant or whatsoever? And this brought a better understanding of eating healthy to people. When you show them like eating a burger could be healthier than eating it outside is a good way. Eating a pizza, when I post a pizza, for example, on a Friday night, I'm eating a pizza, which is around 600, 700 calories, but packed with protein. They're like, oh, how did you do this? Normally a pizza is 1,000 calories and it's only carbs and fat and whatsoever. I'm like, yeah, there is ways to be able to make your food that you like, but in a healthier way.
Yeah, and this brings another question: is the question of the eyeballs in the social networks, and that's what those people are looking for: eyeballs to look for commercials and so on and so forth. So we could imagine like something like reversing Mukbang episodes and invite Mukbang creators to focus on this mindful eating slowly, promoting. Like something like the flavors, something like the textures, and getting like a competition, bet on that and say, okay, because most of the time, not only you eat, you look at people eating a lot and having competition about that, but we never speak about the texture, the colors, the origin of the food. I think this is a totally other world that we could promote to get the eyeballs of the people. And I think it'll be appreciated.
I love that idea. I love that you're bringing it back to the ingredients, the characteristics of the food itself. It's really vital when people struggle with binge eating. They usually describe that they don't even really taste the food. They don't enjoy it after the first few mouthfuls because they're not appreciating it. They're not, engaged in the moment because it's such a dissociative experience. So I think that could add another level of mindfulness perhaps to the eating experience, which will go down well.
Karim, you actually brought a factor that I've never thought about, which is the color of the food that you see. And it's so true because when you cook a healthy meal, for example, at home, it tends to have less color than a fast food meal or whatsoever. I have no idea why.
No, they have colors exhausters, by the way. You have exhausters of taste, you have exhausters of color, you have exhausters of texture. I mean, those industrial guys, they work on all the levels of the way you interact with food. So you never know what it is in the origin. When you do your food at home, you buy your food. You know where you buy it from. You know probably who produces it because the market you buy it from tells you the story about the agriculture who produces the food, so on and so forth. But then on these TV shows or on any other means of industrial food, it's all fake. It's all arranged. And even on the production of the tomato, for instance, they produce tomatoes to have certain colors in certain countries and other colors in other countries. So it goes very fast into the seed of the plant that is producing food.
Yeah, totally. Food industry has a lot to answer for sure. Just here in the UK, big topic. Here in the UK, they've just prohibited advertising of junk food. They've called junk food, I think, before 9 p.m. now. So that's a positive step forward.
So how do they do that? Interesting.
Yes, I believe it's going to be a countrywide ban on television promotion of those junk foods, certain categorizations of junk foods.
Wow.
That's very, very, that's very disruptive, huh? It's really wonderful.
But even like this, people are still gonna go through fast food because it's fast, it's efficient, it's cost efficient, and as long as they don't educate themselves, they're always gonna go through the easy kind of choice. Without knowing that the easy choice is just cooking at home, cooking in 10 minutes, you have your meal, it's healthy, it's tasty, and you know exactly what you eat.
I agree with you somewhat, but I don't think it's lack of education. People find themselves in these situations because certainly people who I work with, people with eating disorders or disordered eating, binge eating, they know so much about food and how it's quote unquote good for us, what is quote unquote bad for us, and what behaviors we shouldn't be doing, behaviors we should be. But it's something to do with the implementation that makes it really hard. I don't think it's lack of information, but perhaps that's just the people in my world.
So I agree. I agree with you. It's lack of implementation. But how would you describe this? Knowing that yes, they have eating disorders and they know about it, and maybe it's another problem. They know too much.
Mm-hmm. A high fact diet is what I say. Too many facts.
Okay.
FACT.
Yeah, but I think this kind of education helps at the end, and it comes down to the day before yesterday. I had lunch with one of the most potent clinician, and he's actually operating people that are tremendously obese, morbidly obese, and he was explaining to me that food plays a role, but what comes before food is stress, and most of them are getting into that state because of stress. And not because of the food itself. There's an underlying reason for them to behave like they behave, even if they're very, very knowledgeable about food.
Couldn't agree more. Stress and other negative emotions too.
Stress is a big factor, especially nowadays. It's everyone is stressed. Everyone is like, oh, what do you have to do today? Oh, I'm so stressed. I have so many things. Knowing that maybe the person that has nothing, but in his head or in her head is like, oh, I'm so stressed because I have so many things, so many things to do. But there's ways to be able to control this and actually introduce the third article that, Karim, if you can read it.
Yes, the third article, remember, is about the effect of AI on human wellness. And it's about how AI can help humans become more human. It's a very interesting article, I found. It's a very recent one, by the way. It says that AI's potential to enhance human nature, and AI is not just about aligning with human values, which I defined in my book, Renaissance Now, which you have here. AI is about aligning with human value. It can also help humans become more human by encouraging behaviors that enhances well-being on a personal and collective level. And AI and personal health coaching, AI also, can act as a hyper-personalized health coach using an individual's biometric data, as I was telling you previously, and preferences to recommend tiny daily behavior changes like nudging that lead to long-term health improvement. So what do you think, Jo?
Initially, I thought, oh no, I don't like anything where the focus is on a device like an app. I think it takes attention away from how we're feeling in our bodies, and our bodies can tell us so much about what we need in that moment. But then as I started to come around to the idea, I actually think that AI could have a really positive role in helping someone recover from binge eating, because, you know, binge eating is such an isolating condition. You tend to withdraw socially. You don't want to make your friends because you don't like how you're feeling. You don't like how you look. You become quite reclusive. And AI could be that guide, that partner, that supportive voice when you don't feel like you can get that from your human peers. Maybe AI will create a role for that person to help them to feel like, you know, this is what you need to do in this moment. You've just binged. Please don't beat yourself up. How about going to bed early? How about, you know, drinking some water or taking a shower, or, you know, prompting an individual in that sense. Once it become oh, you just binged 5,000 calories. Now you must go to the gym and burn 5,000 calories off. That would be detrimental. That would be extremely unhelpful. But as a gentle guiding coach, I think it could be really, really useful.
I couldn't agree more. Well, go ahead.
No. Well, I was going to say that while AI has the potential to ask as a like kind of GPS for the soul, we can ask ourselves how we can balance this with the inherently human process of learning from missteps and experiencing failure, and can AI really allow space for self-discovery, as isn't always the self-discovery speaks for itself. There are people that know how to read themselves. There are people that don't know how to read themselves, and I think reading ourselves is a very good thing to learn out of practitioners like you. And also, we could also address the risk of becoming over-reliant to AI for personal decisions, potentially awakening our own intuition and decision-making in areas like health, relationship, and also spiritual growth. For me, the magical word is balance. Use AI. We use it extensively in the company. We do it in our research. This is our aim, to help people nudge themselves, like I said, but don't overdo it. Do it in a balanced dose.
Something I see very frequently is somebody using an app, like a calorie counting app, to track their intake every day, punch it in, weigh out the food, make sure it's really accurate, as accurate as they can, and then living life as dictated by the app. So the app says you've run out of calories for the day. Oh no, I can't eat. But what if you're really hungry and you feel like you need to eat something? So I really like what you said about balance. It's about using it to help and not to hinder, because I find when you rely on apps too much, that it becomes a real hindrance in someone in their relationship with food. So balance all the way.
You said something about calorie app and all of that. No, it's a very good thing, because I personally use it not every day. I used to use it every day for one only reason, is that I had a specific goal and I had to calculate everything that I did, but I wasn't living as a normal human being. I had a specific goal for that thing. So I used it for a month. And thanks to that month, I understood my plates, what they had exactly. From that time, I stopped calculating my calories, because intuitively I knew what I was putting in my plate. So it's
Amazing.
kind of a guidance. And I personally, it's again my personal opinion, advise people to take a month to calculate every single day, just to understand. It's just an understanding and not being obsessive, because you're right. Obsession can lead to disasters, and that's super bad, can lead to eating disorders. And actually, I believe that is a strong factor that leads to eating disorder, is calculating everything, every single calorie that you're going to eat, because then you're going to be like, oh, no, I ate a small chocolate chip. I went over my calorie thing, which makes nonsense.
I can't go meet my friends now because I've no calories left, so I have to stay in. So socially you withdraw. Like, it's really, really negative. But what you just described with your experience of doing it for a month, that sounds like a great example of achieving balance with using calorie apps. You did it for a month. It worked for you. You didn't get obsessed. You moved on.
Exactly.
Yes, but then it comes back to what we were explaining before, which is this yo-yo thing of getting on track with, let's say, a new habit, and you shocking your body, and this new habit brings you the result that you're expecting for. But after a certain period of time, when you look at yourself, you nearly change the habit, and even if not, you change the habit, your body gets used to the new habit, so you have to shock it again to come to another level, and so on and so forth. I would say we can relate to the AI. We can challenge the perfection ideal with the AI, because then we can explore the idea that AI encouragement toward optimized, healthier choices might lead to a kind of unrealistic ideas of perfect. And we should, I think, highlight how imperfection is part of human nature, and invite discussion maintaining authenticity while using AI as a guide. This is why we use AI as a nudging tool, saying to the person, you have to really get embedded with your body, knowing and measuring what's happening to it, how you feel, and then you take your decision. Yeah. And sometimes you feel great, but your body's so much heated that you better change some of your habits. And sometimes you're feeling awful while you're having is recovering. I mean, fever is the best sign of the body fighting against a disease, fighting against something and a lot of people think that fever is bad. Fever is good. It's a sign of something happening, your body defending itself. And that's how I see it.
Yeah, it's interesting. We'll have to wait and see how AI comes to transform eating disorders. Yeah.
I think as a guide through the day, it's definitely going to help. Just receiving a notification saying, "Hey, like you're doing great," or something actually that motivates you, and not something that puts you down and reminds you of a bad human that you are, or whatever.
Exactly. Which sometimes those calorie apps can give that message, like, "Oh, you ate 10 calories more. You need to now, go for an extra long walk tomorrow." We need to avoid that message.
Totally agree. There is a big part of a kind of human mimicking mentorship when it comes to AI. And there was a survey, by the way, done with the patients that went to doctors. And the survey was, it struck me. They were asking them, would you trust more diagnostics made by an AI and a doctor? 85% say the AI, and it was about something like 2,000 people. It was not 7, it was 2,000. And then the second question was, would you prefer to have an AI as a companion or would you prefer the interaction of a doctor? 65% said, I would prefer an interaction with an AI. Because now AI is talking to you like the film Her. I don't know if you saw the film Her, where the guy falls in love with an AI and so on and so on, because of the way the AI was talking. And it comes back to the emotional way of handling the relation when you're an AI, because it's a species today more than ever. When you're handling the relation, and it has to be an emotional one, but the only thing is that people have to know it's a device, it's a tech, and only a tech, no more. And get centered again, listening to their body.
Ultimately, I think there's no substitute for human interaction. And, I sometimes am asked the question, are you worried that your job is going to be taken over by AI? And the answer is absolutely not, because, I do fundamentally believe that people still need good quality expert in-person or online face-to-face support. But yeah, I hope it can be used as a supporting tool for people's recovery to completely replace
I totally agree with you, but I believe, when you look around you in the world, we 8 billion people, right, Joe? Not anybody can come to Joe and ask for advice and so on and so forth. So I believe that AI would be the ideal democratic tool for those who can't afford to come to see you or have an interaction with you directly, or even on the phone or on the computer, because you have probably over 5 billion people that can't do that, or even more.
As a way of reaching people who can't afford professional support. Okay.
Absolutely. And they'll have the right interaction, not a perfect one, but the right one, with the right diagnosis. That's what I believe.
There's this way, but there's also the fact that as a nutritionist or as a coach, was whatever, you can actually follow your clients as well with AI and help you to be able to help other people as well and help as many people as we can, because I strongly believe that that's what we need, with help to be able to help and not to replace our jobs or whatever. It's going to be a tool that we're going to use to enhance our knowledge and enhance our expertise to help more people.
Yeah, I think as a co-pilot for practitioners like you, Joe, or other people like you, it's a really interesting tool, because imagine the way it works. It brings you hundreds of thousands of data to be able to be analyzed in a heartbeat, and giving you some guidelines that you can follow or not, according to your perception, according to the type of client you have in front of you, things like that. And I think it can be helpful as long as you have the decision on what you want to say to your client.
It sounds like it's going to help reach more people, to be able to help more people. So that has to be a good thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, I'm really excited to see what people are going to say in the comments, because this is a huge topic that we've been talking about, not only like us as wellness gurus, wellness coaches and all, but everyone is talking about how AI is going to help me become better and whatever. And there's a whole topic about it. But just before we finish, I would like to know if Joe, you would like to give a final word or guidance or something to the audience.
Sure. I hope that this conversation today just shone a light on this behavior of binge eating. If you are experiencing binge eating, you haven't said it to anybody because you feel so ashamed about it. I believe that secrets die in the light. So bringing it to the fore today, I hope, has relieved some of that shame. Please do check out my podcast, the Binge Eating Dietitian podcast, or follow me on Instagram at binge.eating.dietitian. And thank you so much for the opportunity to speak today.
It was a pleasure to have you as a guest, Joe. We really had tremendous time. We were exchanging ideas. Probably some ideas were in opposition, but that's the purpose of the podcast. So Yassine, floor is yours to conclude.
Guys, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notifications button so you don't miss the next one. Every single important information is going to be on the description, the socials of Jo as well. So don't forget to go check her out, and see you on the next one.